What you did was not nice! It's not nice to do that!
What's up? Here with a little quick review of the latest season of And I gotta say, off the bat, if you saw my last review for Invincible for season 2, you would know I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like in love with it the same way I was with season 1. I'm glad to say season 3 comes back not only better than season 2, but better than season 1. This season has the best pacing of the entire show. There isn't a single episode or storyline that is wasted throughout this entire season. It could be a virtue of the source material, however, because after reading the entire comic and falling in love with it, I realized that the point in the story in which season 2 adapted is just the point in the story I think I just universally dislike regardless of the medium, because everything after that I really enjoyed. Mark is getting so much better, obviously in terms of his strength level and things like that, but mainly in terms of his character development. Obviously after I finished the comic books, he became one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. But honestly, the show is also doing a really good job of presenting him in a way that can grow towards that or boost it if you already feel that way like I do. You really feel for him and the journey that he's going through, and the new foes and obstacles that he faces this season challenge him even harder, probably the hardest he's ever been challenged, because now he's truly facing more so the morality behind his decisions, and if there is truly a good or right thing to do versus a wrong thing to do. Is there really such thing as a bad guy or a good guy? I loved all of it, and I love how a lot of what he argues against comes right back to face him, in some cases immediately or near the end of the season. And the same could go in terms of character development for a ton of the supporting characters. One in particular is Cecil. Cecil really stands out. I mean, if you've seen the poster for the season, you can pretty much understand the relationship status of Mark and Cecil pretty much the entire season. And a lot of it comes from that same inner conflict that Mark is dealing with, which is something that is shown through a bunch of flashbacks that are all really well done and really cool. The aspect of the morality and what Mark is going through is something that Cecil went through already and has dealt with and has kind of become callous to when it comes to his treatment of D.A. Sinclair and Darkwing, the murderous successor to the original Darkwing. And Mark has like a serious issue with it. He nearly ripped Cecil's head off because of it. And you know, I saw a lot of people on Mark's side on Twitter, and I was like, all right, y'all clearly just have no understanding, because I think Cecil's issue with Mark is way better in the show than it is in the comic. However, Cecil still makes a dumb fucking decision by the end of the season, so we'll get to that when we get to that.
Mark,
watch this.
What are you doing? Why would you
keep him alive.
like that?
Eve is great this season. I love that her and Mark finally got together and are pretty much perfect for each other. Honestly, she is the best love interest in like comic book history to me. Of course, there are other characters that have been presented well and are legendary.
Daddy!
Sit down! Get in the back seat!
Hey, baby.
Come on, pull up, let's go.
But to me, her devotion to Mark, her relationship with Mark, and how they help each other grow, developing into adults fully, I just think is amazing. And to be honest, she has the coldest power set in the entire show. The only bad thing is she's voiced by Britta.
Oh, Britta's in this?
Also, we got Oliver, and Oliver is a great inversion of the trope of like the bratty, cliche, bloodlusted kid who's imbued with a bunch of power even though he's young and kind of is a sociopath, disconnected from the rest of humanity. Instead, he is also growing to learn how to love Earth and learn their customs and interact with people his age and stuff like that. And I thought that was really cool. Honestly, the season started before I read it, and by the time we got to episode 4, I read the entire thing. So I was really hoping they weren't going to go in that direction until I read the comics and saw that they didn't. But there's still a chance, obviously, that they could change that character's projection from the comics into the show into a completely different way. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. But I loved Oliver this season and how much he posed as a legitimate moral quandary for Mark to deal with that actually weighs on Mark the entire season. It isn't just the wailings of a little child, it is that of someone who is making a ton of great points that Mark, you know, has to debate and battle with in his mind. We also get Rex Splode getting a ton of character development this season. A lot of it is through his dialogue, but also through his actions that he takes throughout the season. You know, he has like this blossoming relationship with Shrinking Ray, and he doesn't treat it like how he treated Adam Eve or duplicate in the past, he's actually having conversations and moments with her and trying to understand her perspective. So it was really adorable, I'm not gonna lie. There's also his aspect of him growing into a legitimate friendship with Mark that is pretty cool. There was one thing I noticed when Cecil and Mark were about to have their battle at the Guardians of the Globe headquarters. Rex kind of jumps into the battle to defend Mark, really no questions asked, and I thought that was just like a really cool moment to see how far they've come since the first season. In all honesty, this portrayal of Rexplode, especially these last 2 seasons, might be my favorite I don't know how to pronounce his last name, role like he's ever done, seriously.
In Captain America, the First Avenger, Red Skull refers to Yggdrasil, the World Tree, guardian of wisdom and fate. Are we to believe, sir, that you are a descendant of that tree?
Girl, what the fuck is you talking about?
And then there's older characters and threats that return from previous seasons, like season 1, such as the Mauler twins, Titan, Machine Head, and Battle Beast, who actually teams up with Nolan and Alan in one of the episodes. And the recurring characters and storylines from previous episodes and seasons honestly makes it really worth watching every episode and paying attention to every character, as the consequences of what feels like a side quest or villain of the week can become a personal or global problem for Mark very easily. And the new foes that Mark deals with this season are great as well, like Powerplex, the alternate Marks, and of course Conquest. And if I could just talk about the things that I didn't really care for this season, I felt like the Guardians took a backseat this season, and there could have been more time to develop the schism between that team and Team. You know, I wish Rudy in particular got more time this season as well, but if the show is going to follow the comics, his role is going to become way more prominent as it continues, so I'm not too mad at that. And also, not a major complaint, but it is a bit disappointing that some characters and arcs are completely absent in the show. Brit, Wolfman, Spawn, and a couple other characters don't appear either until later in the season in very minor roles, or in Spawn's case, not at all. Legally, I understand for certain characters, you know, why they can't or couldn't appear, but in terms of Brit and Wolfman, they do appear, so I was just disappointed that their storylines and appearances and inclusions in the comics up until that point are just cut out. Overall, I just gotta say, this is for sure the best season. The character development, pacing, writing, and voice acting are peak, and I appreciate that the show is also diverging from the comics in some ways and adding new storylines, like with Dark Blood, and changing some other storylines like with Shrinking Ray and Rex, just to improve them or to add on to the emotional ties or aspects to certain characters and their fates. And hey, what did y'all think of this season? Do y'all agree with me? Is this the best season of Invincible? Are y'all still playing Fortnite with the Invincible skins, busting that popular emote as the new black and blue Mark skin or the Alan skin? Cause I am. Not as Duplicate though. Like I said, fuck Duplicate and Immortal.